Let's move on and talk about Mark Bonner at Cambridge then. A man who, when we first talked about him, again, I think it was probably February, March time, Mike, he was still at that stage a relative unknown. But what he was doing was building a fantastic team and a promotion campaign. He's gone from being a relatively unknown League Two manager to being a slightly better known League One manager. And Cambridge have made a really good start to life in League One this season. The Cambridge data wasn't particularly good last season, and they were widely tipped to struggle. And of course, there's still a very long way to go. But I mean, I'm not wearing one, but if I had a hat, Mike, it would be firmly off and it would be pointing in the direction of Mark Bonner.
Yeah, he's doing a great job. He's done, it was an incredible achievement to get Cambridge promoted last season. Even more so when, you refer to the data, you look at the data, they were not automatic promotion material in terms of personnel resources. Certainly the intangibles beyond what you see as performance data beyond, they certainly had so many of the intangibles and the character and personality that you see of a promotion team. But in terms of bottom line technical ability, it was questionable whether they're even top seven. So they've got promotion and they've not done anything special in the transfer market over the summer. They've probably added numbers. They've probably a bit more depth to them and potential to have a bit more variety. But you're looking at them and thinking, right, well, this is a team that probably shouldn't have got promoted out of League Two. It doesn't look like they've upgraded too much in too many places. You're just thinking, right, well, this is going to be, a survival battle from day one. And it probably is. But we're already seeing signs that Mark Bonner's ingenuity, tactical ingenuity, his ability to, just think outside the box is going to give them a fighting chance, I think, this season.
And it's that ability to stay calm as well. And also what I found interesting is that Wes Hoolahan was missing for the weekend's trip to Portsmouth. And he said, he actually apologized to the reporter after the game. And he said, I'm sorry I didn't mention that Hoolahan was out. I said there were no injuries because I didn't want Portsmouth to get wind of that. And I didn't want them to have any sort of advantage or to change their plan based on the fact that Hoolahan wasn't playing. Now, of course, there'll be many managers who have done that down the years, but haven't held their hands up to it necessarily. Well, Bonner's admitting it, but he's very pleased with how it panned out.
Yeah, it was an absolutely fantastic result. I think this is the biggest thing about Cambridge. If I had to say one trait that they've got and one trait that they've displayed under Bonner that really sums them up, it's the fact that they responded to that 5-1 defeat against Lincoln last weekend with a 2-1 win at Portsmouth. They did this so many times last season. And it's this ability to keep emotions on an even keel and just not let it bother you when you have real bad setbacks. You just get back on the horse and you go again. And you everything's a learning experience for Bonner. He just loves feedback from any situation to the point that even the most humbling experiences, he's almost rubbing his hands together. There's so much to learn from this. There's so much that we can take forward. So much that, he's such a process man that he just doesn't get bothered by outcomes if the outcomes aren't the ones that he wants. He just wants to keep learning new things. He's always looking for novelty and looking for, the new ways to see things that he hasn't seen things before about his own team and about how they might develop. And it's all about development.
And tactically, he's very, very astute. We know that. But he's also, one thing you notice about him, you touch on intangibles there, but he's good at sort of playing the occasion as well. So, for example, he told his players, and he mentioned this in both the pre and the post-match interviews, he said, going to Fratton Park is never easy. The first thing we need to do is dampen down that crowd. And that's exactly what his team did. And told his players not to get too overawed by the noise coming from the stands and just focus on what you're doing. So, tactically, he set them up perfectly. A Bonner masterclass was the phrase that I saw regularly used by the journalists who've been to that match. But also, clever to focus on the environment and what might be going through the players' heads, despite, not really having a playing career himself.
Yeah, well, it's a good balance to his ability to make judgments. Now, he's a process man at heart. And I think one of the accusations that can be levelled at process men is that they can sometimes be indecisive. But the flip side of that is he's got an emotional side and a logical side. He can kind of see both. So he almost sees the logic in framing something in a certain way for his own players by understanding the emotions of what's going on at Portsmouth, of playing at Fratton Park, the pressure that must be on the Portsmouth players, only being little old Cambridge, and the expectations that are on the opposition. So he's kind of got these two things in balance, and he can come up with a logical sort of tactical blueprint that feeds into the energy of the Portsmouth fans and quietening the crowd and getting the first goal, or, understanding that, and even in victory, he talked about how deep they were getting within the game. And that, even in what was probably the biggest occasion of his time in charge of Cambridge so far, the biggest single match and the biggest single coup he's landed, he was seeing learning experiences of, we need to learn from the fact that we were dropping deeper and deeper as the game went on. And that's understandable when you've got the energy of the crowd. They get the goal back, get it back to 2-1. And then all of a sudden there's this force of will that's, pushing them onto you. And we just need to learn how to stand up better. So he's always looking for these learning experiences. But it's this constant balance between logic and emotion, seeing the emotions of what's going on and what might be affecting people, but also coming up with logical reasons and making sense of things in that way. And I think that kind of, that sums him up quite well.
So I guess when losing your top goal scorer, Paul Mullin, to a side who were at that point then 2 divisions below, not necessarily saying he sees this as a learning experience, but that is a problem, isn't it? That is a problem that needs to be solved. That's something for Bonner to really get his, his hands dirty in and work out how to solve a problem like your top goal scorer leaving and taking 30-odd goals with him.
Yeah, well, I think this season's, it's going to pose different challenges in any case. And I think one of the things that Cambridge had to do this season, and I believe they did change shape this weekend, I'm not entirely sure of that, but it is to be adaptable. Is, last season was very much, they had players who were having career-defining seasons at the top end of the pitch. And there was a certain consistency to the way they went about the business because, there's a lot of games where they didn't necessarily go into as favourites, but they were backing themselves like they were favourites. They were seeing themselves as potential promotion challengers. So we're going out on the front foot in games. I think that's going to happen less and less often this season. So it's more about being adaptable. And I think it's going to be more about what happens at the back end of the pitch, and defensively out of possession and your shape and things like that. And I think what we've seen so far in the away games they've played, even the 1-1 draw at Plymouth was a great result. And losing 2-1 at Accrington, they give a really good account of themselves. They go away from home last season when they were getting promotion. They bagged some real big away wins that were, they potentially freezing a little bit at home, but then bagging big results to compensate away from home. And I think it implies that this is a team that can go on the road, could go to new territories, new surroundings and places where they've never played before. And this might be Bonner's general attitude of loving new experiences, new things, all the novelty of seeing things for the first time and making new patterns. That to go to Fratton Park for the first time is exciting. There's a fearlessness that comes with this love of feedback and of new information and new emerging patterns. And going to Fratton Park for the first time is something to be relished. It's something to be enjoyed. And I think a lot of teams would be promoted out of League Two. They would go to Fratton Park and not quite be ready for the occasion and would freeze. And I think it's because of Bonner's personality type and his attitude, I think it rubs off on the players that, no, this is really exciting stuff to just be part of this occasion. And I think that's just what transmits itself to the players. And so they might be an interesting team for the rest of the season that you can never totally predict when they go away from home to these new grounds and some of the bigger clubs. They could be a real tough nut to crack or, and again, Portsmouth scored yesterday and rallied late on. I don't think there's going to be too many low-scoring games with Cambridge because I don't think they're too rigid defensively, but I still think they could be quite enterprising and just not a straightforward routine task. I just don't think you'll get a routine home win against Cambridge.
Yeah, got some exciting visits to look forward to. Trip to Hillsborough and Stadium of Light, for example. So I guess one of the questions has to be now, sides always come up with a bit of momentum. Cambridge have made a very good start. They have only lost twice in their first 7 matches. And, Bonner would have snapped your hand off for that if you told him that at the end of last season. Now, how does he sustain this? Has he got the right personality type to keep this going? From what you've said, it sounds like it, but this is a side who don't have too much quality below the starting 11. You would say plenty of depth, more depth than last season, but the quality is a question. Now, with Bonner and the way he sets up and the way he frames each occasion, does that necessarily become a problem if 1 or 2 injuries start to hit?
I think they're going to need breaks. I think they're going to need, or a lack of, bad breaks. So long as they don't get too many bad breaks, then they can have a fighting chance, which is credit in itself, because I think you profile them as a club. The budget, the standards they set last season, the performance data last season, the transfer window, the recruitment over the summer, and you're looking and thinking they've got to be bottom of the league or bottom 2, and never really looking like they're going to survive. The start they've made would suggest that this is going to be nip and tuck all season, that they're going to be giving themselves a fighting chance right till the end. So long as there's no bad breaks during the course of the season that kind of makes it an impossible task, it's just going to be really interesting to see. Yeah, I think I think they've got every chance. The home form could be crucial, because I think it's all right going to these away grounds and showing spirited displays, but a lot of these spirited displays away from home and relishing these trips to these grounds might still end in defeat. So you've still got to take your points at home. And the 2 home victories that they've had so far, they've lost the XG in both. I believe they were quite heavily sort of second best in terms of chances created on the day, but they've had the breaks at the right time. And all importantly, they've got the first goal. And Bonner's all about key moments within games. I think it's all about holding your nerve, knowing that you're second best for big periods of matches, but just holding your nerve, staying calm, keeping those emotions in check, and realising when the key moments come along. And when there's a key period in a game, when you're just getting on top for 5 or 10 minutes and then a chance presents itself, you've got to take that chance. And I think so long as they can just stay on that even keel, avoid too many bad breaks, then I don't see why not. But yeah, they've got the start that they've had now. They have to kind of keep, it's almost like they don't want to get into a rut. They need one result every 4 or 5 games that just keeps them ticking over, that keeps them, not getting too demoralised where the job just becomes too big.
But given what we've seen from Bonner and his personality and the way he learns from mistakes and the way he keeps everyone calm and the way he responds to setbacks, are we to assume that there probably won't be a bad losing run at any stage this season because of how he learns from it? I guess one of the problems might be if fixtures get cancelled in the winter and then suddenly there's a huge backlog in March, April, May, and they have to play Saturday, Tuesday, maybe. But given what we've seen, the limited time that we've known Bonner, it doesn't feel like Cambridge are going to lose 4, 5, 6 games on the spin, does it?
No, possibly not. I mean, we've got bundles of evidence so far that they do respond very, very well to setbacks. And there's no bigger setback than the 5-1 defeat home to Lincoln last week. And there's no bigger response than going to Portsmouth and winning 2-1 at Fratton Park. So I'd say more than likely we're going to get more 5-1 defeats at home to Lincoln than we are going to get 5 defeats on the bounce. And that's possibly the pattern that we'll see. So goal difference could be a problem come the end of the season where Cambridge are concerned. But, we could be talking about the team with the worst goal difference in the division actually staying up. And, because of this ability to respond, because of this ability to learn from situations and just relish the novelty of the league. And that means taking setbacks as learning experiences and not as things that you measure your confidence by or judge yourself by. Remember, in the last podcast, we talked about lack of ego in Mark Bonner. That's one phrase that I remember coming up and what we talked about. And I think there's a lack of ego in the team. It's not a reflection on you. Don't take it personally if you get beat 5-1 by Lincoln. Just move on to the next game and see what we can take from it and how we can adapt and develop moving forward. So I just think, so long as the fortune's on the side and they don't get this backlog of fixtures or tons of injuries or things that just kind of make it almost impossible, then why not?
As a quick aside, we love XG. We love using the data to make predictions each and every weekend when we're betting. But is it fair to say, should we just give up on Cambridge? Should we just say, let's not even look at their XG numbers because they're so misleading? And I can't think of another side across the top 4 divisions who have just deviated so far from the XG that they've produced on a week-by-week basis.
Yeah, there can be a dream from that respect. If you're wanting to, go against the data, then Cambridge are not a bad side to be backing at big prices, and particularly when things aren't going particularly, when they do appear to be out of form, as we talk about these responses. If they did get into a rut of 4 or 5 games and then there was a shot to nothing type fixture away from home, then don't worry about the data about Mark Bonner's ability to pattern recognise and to understand, where the key areas of a pitch will be on any given day against any given team and what the key moments in a game might be. Then there's no rhyme or reason to where Cambridge victories or points might come from. It's about the novelty of the way they approach the game that could ultimately be the defining factor, not the 11 against 11 that's on the pitch that you see.
So finally, back to Bonner then. We've no doubt that Bonner has a bright future in the game and that at some point Bonner will be managing higher up the pyramid. We talked about that on the previous podcast. We've got high hopes and expectations for him. But right now, the job that he's got to do with Cambridge in League One will be 100% occupying his mind and what he needs to focus on. And keeping them up will be a triumph, won't it? Keeping them in this division against all expectations will be a real feather in his cap, such an achievement for such a rookie coach as well. It feels at the moment, Mike, like he might do it. Has he got the tools to complete this job? And as we say, against all odds, keep the U's in the 3rd tier?
I'm going to back him and say yes, but I do think it would be a much bigger achievement than last season getting promotion. That was remarkable enough. It's very early in the season, and we do see this a lot. Newly promoted sides on the crest of a wave when they first come up, they bag enough points to suggest, and then there's a nosedive and they flatline, and they're just not good enough for the level. And that might be the case with Cambridge, and we might be speaking too early. But I've seen enough in Bonner to believe. There's something I like about Bonner. We talk about these new managers that are coming through, all the emerging talent in coaching in this country and stuff like that. But there's almost a lot of identikit managers, that have come through the system. And Bonner's not come through a system. He gets lumped in with them because of his age, because of his profile, that he's just a first-time manager and stuff like that. But he's not come through a Premier League academy or St. George's Park or anything like that. This is just a guy that is, learning, self-taught. Everything is self-taught that he's going through. And the more newness you can experience, the more novelty, the more he's learning all the time, and the better and better and better he's going to get. And I just think there's something exciting about him, whereas a lot of these emerging development type managers have been taught the ropes. They've been on the inside of big clubs and taught the values of a pressing style or the different types of football, and they've been given this amazing tactical education. I think Bonner's just a hustler. He's just a real hustler who works things out for himself. And I think that's what makes him such a special talent. And that's what makes, I'd love him to keep Cambridge up this season. I also think his future, if he does manage to achieve that, his future's got to be higher. And I think Cambridge fans have got to accept that promotion out of League Two and then keeping you in League One, can you really stand in Mark Bonner's way at that stage? But it'd be interesting to see. I think if he keeps Cambridge up this season, I think Championship at the least, you've got to be expecting a club to be coming in for him.